Bonneville, I'm LaDawn Davis. This is ZNS.
The Rundown is brought to you by Commonwealth Brewery Limited. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Bahamians questioning whether commercial banks are trying to attack their business or push them away or something of the sort, with increasing fees and a focus on promoting online and automatic banking. But these institutions perhaps see it differently. And tonight we're going to have an in-depth conversation and really, what are they trying to do? You've seen it year after year. It gets high and goes higher. Then it continues to go higher. And you're wondering, well, if I'm saving my money, then why are the banks eating my money? And what gain am I getting from putting it in the bank if it's going to cost me to put it there? And then it's going to cost me to take it out of there. And then it's going to cost me if I want a special service. And then it's going to cost me if I want to see a person's face. But if I go to the ATM, I don't pay nothing, I just pay a little less. So at the end of the day, are commercial banks working for the average Bahamian? It's a real question that we want to talk about tonight, because we encourage Bahamian people to do the right thing, which is save. But are you really saving when you're watching the money in the bank just decline because of the fees every month that you see? Doesn't make sense. Is there an alternative to this? And really, should government intervene and cause there to be some kind of protection for the average consumer? Bear in mind, these are institutions that every year turn a profit. I've not heard of any clearing bank that has not turned a profit in a year. So then, why are we allowing this to happen to the Bahamian people? And is there a rational reason behind it? Well, I think my guest tonight thinks so. He perhaps will give us a rational reason as to why banks continue to put taxes on the backs of struggling Bahamians already, who want to do the right thing and put their money up and save it. Or should we resort back to what Mama did in the day, where she just placed it under her mattress and it cost you absolutely nothing? It's a real conversation you want to have today. Also on this show, I might tell you, is a story that I call Triumph in the Face of Tragedy. A story that many of you would have watched online and play out in the media when we saw the tragic slaying of a former parliamentarian, Don Saunders. Devastated his family. But the story tonight isn't the tragedy. The story tonight is the willpower to triumph in the face of tragedy, and how a young man, still a teenager, fought through perhaps one of the most difficult times of his life, represented our country, and now he's representing his school in a big way. Don Saunders Jr. is going to be my guest tonight as well. We're going to talk to the young chap. I'm going to do it quick before it gets his bedtime to go to school, to get ready for school. But you want to hear his story. It's a great show we have planned for you tonight. Gowan Bowe, the president of the Clearing Banks Association, is here, and we're going to put the tough questions to him. All of that begins right after the break. Stay close.
Dance Event, JMC TCI, and Sunset Village Fish Fry present I'm a Boatman, featuring KB and Fred, D-Mac, Tino D, Nishi Ellis, Sweet Emily, Wilfred Sullivan, Funky D, DVS, Veronica Bishop, Papa Smurf, Sherrod Taylor, Lil Joe Cartwright, Mama D, Colin McDonough, Chad Cully, and the VIP. And from Turks Island, the Proficient Band, and host Super P. There'll also be performances by The Swinger and the Platinum Nights Junkanoo Group. Sunday, October 13th at Sunset Village Fish Fry, 8 Mile Rock. Sponsored by the Ministry of Grand Bahama and the Ministry of Tourism.
Welcome to our SBDC Business Tips, where we share valuable insights with small business owners. From practical advice to actionable tips, we're here to support you on your journey to success. Network, network, network. Networking is a powerful tool for entrepreneurs. Building relationships with other business owners, industry professionals, and potential customers can open doors to new opportunities, collaborations, and valuable insights. Attend networking events, join industry associations, and use social media to expand your network. Networking is more than just exchanging business cards. It's about fostering meaningful relationships that can propel your personal and professional growth as an entrepreneur. We hope you find these business tips helpful. To help your business reach its full potential, visit sbdcbahamas.com or give us a call at 242-461-SBDC.
Clint Watson has been the trusted voice of journalism for over 2 decades. He is your first choice for hard-hitting discussions, your best choice for current affairs issues and investigative journalism. It's time to start the journey of relentless journalism. It's time to start the journey of facts over fiction. It's time for the Rundown with Clint Watson here on ZNS, where only the sun covers the Bahamas better.
We have more than anyone else. We are the most. We are news leaders, and credibility is the order of the day.
Why don't you come to the most? Only the Sun can cover you better than our new digital product with exclusive stories and entertaining content.
We are the most. Community TV page and radio community announcements. The most viewers and listeners in the country.
We have the most years of the human history recorded. There's no archive like ours.
I came back home to bring you even more news and local programming. We're simply the most, the new ZNS.
Hey everyone, it's your boy Vontae, and welcome back to another episode of The Drop.
2 minutes to airtime. I came back home to make sure you have the most in news and entertainment. We're simply the most.
And I came back home to make sure that you have the most in information, education, entertainment, and inspiration. We're simply the most. The new ZNS, where only the sun covers the Bahamas better. Welcome back. Of course, you are watching The Rundown. I want to say a special good night to all of you in the Lions Den online. Good to have you. And those of you watching us on our social media platforms, YouTube as well. I see some of you commenting already. William Mortimer says, the numbers house safer than the banks. And Dolores Sweeten says, save it in the union. So obviously getting some interesting comments as we talk about clearing banks and these fees that are being attached to consumers. Of course, my guest tonight is the chairman of the Clearing Banks Association of the Bahamas, Mr. Gawimbo, who's also the head of Fidelity Bank. Welcome to The Rundown, sir. Your first appearance. Good to have you.
You got rich and switch.
Well, you got to move on up every now and then, you know. Good to have you. Let's get right into it, because obviously we saw the rise in fees, and people started getting concerned as to what indeed is a reason behind banks and fees. I know one particular bank that the Tribune wrote about who announced their fee restructure was CIBC. And they revealed that personal, business, and corporate banking clients will experience fees increases from September 1. Right? The greatest increase are in the monthly service fees, which will rise by 40% for personal banking clients, 25% and 20% for business and corporate clients. Now, the bank revised fee schedule showed monthly service fees will increase from $2.75 a month to $3.85 for personal banking clients. Now, I still want to know, what kind of service are you providing when you say service fees? What are you doing with the money? The money sits on an account. While business and corporate banking clients will see a $3 increase from $13.20 to $16.50 or $19.80 respectively. Withdrawal fees for personal banking clients, that means take your money out. The money that you put in, if you want to withdraw it to use it, is an increase of 27 cents. And those for business and corporate banking clients will see a 16-cent increase. Deposit fees, that means putting your money in, will also see an increase of 27 cents for corporate savings and checking accounts, while Savings Plus accounts will now have $1.38 deposit fee after being zero. Business banking clients will pay an additional 38 cents. Mr. Bo, make it make sense. Why these increases in clearing banks for average everyday clients?
You run the ZNS Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, and you have your expenses in terms of your payroll, your business, the rent or the maintenance of the equipment, and you generate your revenues by advertising fees, etc.
Correct.
Some of them are newsworthy in the sense that there's important information that gets out. Some of them are promotional, etc. And you price effectively to try and ensure that you cover your costs and ideally have a bit of a cushion to make future investment to do the things like you're doing tonight.
That sounds so luxurious.
Right, so I use that, I only start there because every business, I think sometimes we look at the banks and forget that it is a business.
Yeah.
And the bank sometimes is seen as this mythical being. And why I say that is that if you think about what is a bank has its shareholders, but 4 or 5 of the clearing banks have actual public shareholding. So it means the average day citizen, your pension funds, your own personal investment may be there. It has depositors, it has borrowers who rely on those first two, and it has employees. And you have management that sits in the middle. So sometimes when we start the conversation by saying, why are banks doing this to customers? I ask the question, who's doing what to who? So if I say the shareholders are doing it, aren't you a shareholder, and are you doing it? Management, is that who's doing it? But management is accountable to the shareholders. The depositors, when you put $100 into your bank, you want to ensure that you get at least $100 back.
Correct.
Right? So there are a number of factors that go into it. And I think coming specific to the fee discussion, 20 years ago, you and I are old enough to even say 30 years ago, we remember when interest rates on savings could have been as high as 7-8%.
Correct.
Right? Interest rates have come down considerably, and sometimes people don't necessarily appreciate it. A bank doesn't make money by you depositing money, and I think that's the myth that we have to debunk. A bank takes the money from the shareholder and the depositor, and it looks for credit-worthy borrowers to lend at a higher rate than it pays its customers. And I know you can beat me up on the interest rates paid, but we'll come back to that one. But in the last, certainly since COVID, since 2020 to the end of 2023, the lending market in the Bahamas contracted by near $500 million. So that means there's $500 million less to lend. Persons went into default, persons had difficulty paying, and even those who got through it are now just getting back to level ground, and so then starting again. So what has highlighted is, as they always say, when tide is high, you don't see that the emperor's naked.
Right.
When the tide goes out, so you have this contraction in lending, you have this contraction in earnings from interest, where that used to subsidize the services banks give. And I'll come back to that one as well. Now, as banks look at their day-to-day business activities, they say, well, how much does it cost me to provide each of these services? And you mentioned a couple of them. So if you talk about service fees, you say, well, what is it that you're doing for a service fee? You mentioned that you could put it under the bed like Mama used to do. Hurricane Dorian showed us that's probably not a wise thing to do, because even beyond theft and the persons that, fire, etc., you could have a natural disaster. So the banks are providing you actually a secure location in order to house your funds in a more digital format. So yes, we will acknowledge
So you're
that.
paying for the space, paying for the fact that I'm taking that risk away from you.
So I'm giving you some insurance protection, but I'm equally making it available to you through multiple avenues. So I'm giving you a debit card so you can digitally move around and transfer your money. I'm giving you the advantage of being able to wire transfer, write checks if you want to, etc. And equally at the same time, what I am providing is surety for the Bahamian reputation that the money laundering, countering of terrorist financing is done, and that takes some compliance costs, etc. Now we could debate, I think we've gone crazy on that, but hey, that's a different story, right? And it's only because of the perception outside. So there are costs. I think what is a fair criticism is asking the question, is it a fair fee for the service being provided?
Correct.
And I think where the big discussion comes around is people feel that the quality of bank service has reduced whilst fees have been increased.
Which is true. I mean, you made a very valid point, right? Because people always complain about, if I'm going into the bank on my lunch hour, where most customers are going on their lunch hour, why do you have tellers off on that same lunch hour?
Yeah, right.
Well, shouldn't their lunch hours fall outside of the customer's lunch hour, so there are people to service their needs? It's a real valid concern, and I don't see why banks have not yet found a way to get around that, because if you're going to charge me a fee, let me get good service.
Well, I can come to that fee, but what I pointed out into that one, when we look at it, we have to really look ourselves in the mirror and say, are we doing all we can to allay the concerns of others? And there are a couple of things we can do. The first thing is service doesn't mean servitude. So we providing a service is not a favor.
Right.
And that, even our own Lord and Savior said, in order to be a leader, you have to serve. So providing service is the ones that's there. Secondly, it's a matter of saying transparency in terms of, well, what are the costs I'm trying to cover? Now, I use this example all the time. We have these bright, shiny lights shining on me, burning up my head. If I call an electrician, though, to change a light bulb, and he says to me, his service charge for visiting me, right, is $100, regardless of what he does.
Right.
And the light bulb is only $350, and he changes that. I have to pay him $103.50. If I had changed the light bulb myself, it would have cost me $350 and maybe the fuel to acquire the light bulb. So when we look at the services that are being provided, banks should be providing alternatives that are more cost effective so that you're not in a situation where you're using the personal service and professional service, because even though you may say, well, there's only a teller. That teller has a salary. There is the actual cost of the physical space, the systems. When I'm dealing with cash, I cannot have one person because the thing we call TIFIN in the Bahamas, so I have to have dual custody, I have to have a supervisor. So actually what is seen to the average customer as a very simple transaction has a multitude of factors that feed into costs. If you don't have to come into the financial institution, and this is not by saying don't come in because I don't want to see you. Now, I'm not saying my competitors don't have that view. I'm saying Fidelity is not. We want to make sure.
You're not trying to deter customers.
We are not trying to deter customers. We are saying don't come and visit us for things that are simple and can be done in a more efficient manner. Save the visit for when you're looking at your life-changing events. So how is it
real money off?
How is it that you yourself can actually make your money work for you as opposed to simply putting it into the bank? But if the bank receives money, just the ending point on this, and the bank has nowhere to lend it, it starts from a zero position. I think that's important for society to appreciate, that the cash being deposited earns no money for the bank. If it has a robust lending environment, then the bank may move to subsidize. And I referenced 30 years ago, what you had was a situation where the lending spreads were so large that you didn't even notice these costs that now are bubbling up. And one point I want to make, because persons look, and you made a statement that was actually inaccurate, and I just want to clarify it, meaning, and I know what you meant. During COVID, there was only one financial institution that didn't report a loss. I'll leave you to figure out which one that is. But the reality is, as people started defaulting, there were significant losses being recorded by the banks.
Now, that's what I want to. That's where I want to go right there, because COVID lasted from, if I'm correct, 2019 to probably 2021. 2021.
21, 22.
So banks may have suffered a loss for 2 years. out of the multiple years that you've had a profit. And I think it's safe to say the banks were the only ones losing. Everybody lost. So now and I think this is where community comes in. Because yes, the banks may have lost and not turned a profit, but how many years you did turn a profit? And how many years after COVID have your profits been increasing at a significant level? These fee increases didn't come the year after COVID. They came this year, right? For some, last year. And so the question then is, after already turned profit since then, you didn't turn a loss, why increase fees if you're already making a profit and you're trying to get lenders and people who use bank services back into those practices again? Why not have a window, particularly in a time of inflation, to say, okay, fine, we've made a profit this year, we made a profit last year, let's give them a year's notice, and then say, okay, next year, because of inflation, we'll look at increasing fees, but not now. It is difficult for consumers to see banks turn a profit and send out their shareholders agreement and their shareholders report and say, look what we've made this year, and then turn around and charge consumers and say it's because banks have bills too, but you just turned a profit.
All right.
So it seems to the consumer that it's a matter of not being needy, it's a matter of being greedy.
All right.
Because you're already turning a profit.
And I started by saying, if Clint Watson is a shareholder, and you say the bank turns a profit, who gets the profit in their pocket?
Well, I do.
Okay.
I've experienced it. You know, I was fortunate when I worked in banking before to get shares in CIBCs, so I could talk about them because I own them. So I have my shares, and I look forward to those dividends that are paid, and that's a wonderful experience. But at the end of the day, are we putting in place unnecessary fees that really are just there to really improve profits more than there is to provide a service?
And that's what I want.
I want you to answer that. I want to go to a break. Because they're going to tell me to go to a break, I tell them the only time they're in charge is for this 1 hour, so I have to listen to them. Right. You're watching the rundown. We're going to come back and talk more about this right after the break. Stay close.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dr. Gale, and I'm inviting you to be a part of a journey where we open the Word of God to receive strength, to receive empowerment from the Scriptures as they have been written. Get your Bibles, get your cup of coffee or your tea, because this journey is gonna be great. This is your day of victory.
If you're looking for a show that inspires, encourages, and lifts up the soul, then Rhythm of Faith is the show for you. Artist of the Week showcase, persons that gives you the story behind the song. Catch Rhythm of Faith, Sundays, 6 p.m., ZNS Television Network.
Welcome back. We're to the rundown. We're talking to Gawain Bo, who is the chairman of the Clearing Banks Association of the Bahamas, about the bank fees and so forth. And I was about to ask you, are the fees really to cover cost, or are they to enhance profits?
And I think that you have to, this is where consumer choice, consumer education, and financial literacy is important. Because I use the example of the electrician, but I do that purposely. You're willing to pay a premium to a serviceman who is clean, on time, and does a good job, right? So, and if you have the counterpart or the contrary situation, you don't want to pay the individual for the time. So we have to educate our customers and consumers to say, you compare the banks, and if you're not getting value for service from one, then yes, you need to move to another. And I know it's frustrating, so I'm not going to make it seem like it's so easy. But the reality is, if you've done the account opening process for one, as belaboring as it was, you know the deal and you probably have the documents. So we need to encourage persons to do the comparison. The second point is, banks all have different philosophies as it relates to what business they want to be in. And sometimes they have a reduced business in a particular area, and so the fees will be higher because they do less transactions. Some banks may see it as a profit avenue to supplement for the losses. Other banks may see it as a pure cost recovery. And that's one of the areas that we could improve the perception by being more transparent. If you say, these are the costs, and then this is my fee, persons have a greater appreciation. They can still argue because they can say, why those costs? But at least you have greater transparency. And you have jurisdictions around the world where they do encourage you to say, when you change fees, you have to disclose how much revenue you're going to earn by it. And in certain jurisdictions, it requires you to say the cost being covered. So we can think about those things here. Profitability, though, in the banks, and sometimes it's difficult because you hear big numbers, but you don't appreciate the big equity that also is behind it. And recently, the governor was reporting that when you look at bank profitability, and everyone jumps on the story he recently had saying how large the bank profits were, bank profitability has only just recovered since 2008, which is 15 years now, including hurricanes, including COVID, etc., to now levels that they were at 2008. So there were an extended period of reduced profitability. But I want to draw this sort of knowledge piece, that banks take risk because the shareholders, when they say to management, this is money for you to go and lend, and we take depositors' money to go and lend, if the borrowers do not repay, there's a risk of loss, because it's unlike a food store or a normal retail store. When you sell the good, the only thing you're losing is the value of that good. However, when you think about a bank and I lend you $100,000, do I earn $100,000 or I just earn the interest?
You earn the interest.
But if you don't pay, do I just lose the interest, or do I lose the 100,000 plus the interest?
You lose 100,000.
So it is an exponential loss because of the nature of the business.
But do banks lose in these cases? When people default, don't banks go to the measure of taking your home, repossessing whatever they repossess, take you to court, and the court makes you pay? So I don't know if banks ever not get their money back.
You got to show me which court I could go to where they make you pay. The court gives a judgment. But if you are, I can't find you, I can't enforce that judgment. If you're not working, I can't enforce that judgment. When you say that I repossess a home, firstly, banks don't do that in the Bahamas, and we need to clarify that. They take
banks don't.
They take vacant possession, and the distinction.
So you don't put anybody out of their house?
They put it out when there's the availability to sell it. And what vacant possession, different from repossession, means? Repossession means the bank takes the property as owner and then starts to sell it. Vacant possession means you remain the owner until I find the ability.
So banks will not, if somebody is defaulting on their mortgage, and the bank says we're going to repossess your home if you don't pay X amount on your mortgage, and they don't pay that, the bank will not go and move those people out of that home?
It has to get an order from the court for vacant possession. And if you speak to any objective lawyer or person that's involved in the process, that could be upwards of 2 years to get that judgment from the courts.
So when people said, I lost my house,
they probably lived 2 years rent-free before they did so.
And then but you will move them out?
If we have an ability to get because the Homeowners Protection Act, and I don't want to get into the legislative debate, and it was well-intentioned when it was brought in, but I've always said that it missed the counterpart that exists in advanced countries. Homeowners protection generally comes with bankruptcy legislation that says, I can bankrupt you, but I need to leave you with a roof over your head. And we could think about some famous cases like O.J. Simpson and others. Like the court did not take his home, and you may say it was a lavish home, but it took everything else from him, his earnings and all elements to pay the debts that he had. We don't have that same type of legislative framework in the Bahamas, so homeowners protection, whilst well-intentioned, has actually frustrated a process of taking unproductive homes where people are not paying and getting them into the hands of productive persons. And let's be very candid, even though it may seem harsh. If you cannot afford to pay the mortgage, you really do not have ownership of that home. And because it wasn't your money you used to buy it, and this is where I come back, it was depositors' money. So when I have conversations with defaulted borrowers, and I bring it home to them, and I say, well, when you look in your household, and your mother and father have deposits with the bank and investments in the bank, and you don't pay me, do you realize I'm saying to your mother and your father, I may not be able to pay you? Because it's not Gowan who gets it. Gowan gets his salary, and he gets his incentives, etc. And yes, you know, that is an aspect for all employees. But the reality of where the real money comes from is depositors and shareholders. So when we start this argument about what banks are doing, I bring it down to saying, well, which grouping is doing what to which grouping? And so when you make the mention of even CIBC and owning the shares, you as a shareholder could say at the AGM, I believe we're making too much profits, right? We should reduce our fees. I'm not saying you're going to win the vote because you have other shareholders who would be.
I just want the ATMs to work when you go to them.
And that's why I said you service and servitude and making sure certain things happen. So I think that if we are honest with ourselves, a lot of the attacks we receive is because persons say, well, I'm paying you, but I don't feel I'm getting from you what I'm paying you for.
Let me ask you about borrowing, because a lot of Bahamians, when Bahamians really need the bank, is obviously to help them get things like a home, maybe a vehicle that's necessary, right? I don't subscribe to the vacation loan thing.
So that's just, we ain't gonna argue that.
Yeah, that's just debt on top of debt. Right. But things that are necessary, a car and a vehicle, and a home.
Yep.
It seems, though, particularly more so for the home than it is the car, that it is a process that's endless with the bank, that has so many fees attached to it, that you're almost in an elite category nowadays to be able to afford a mortgage to have a home. And what once used to be something that Bahamians used to be proud of, being able to get a mortgage to get a home, it now almost moves to the elite category because banks, it's almost so out of reach and touch for the average Bahamian that home ownership is now becoming really a dream more than it is a reality.
And this is one of those cases where a few bad apples spoil the bunch, meaning that I mentioned where profitability only returning from 2008. If you open your papers and you don't see as much in the papers because the banks realized they were spending so much money publishing the distressed property listing. If you look at the overhang of distressed properties that are sitting in the country today, and it's in international reports, the financial sector assessment program that comes and assesses the financial sector, the Bahamas says our greatest threat is we have so many distressed properties, and banks are sitting with these properties that basically are not performing because the persons are not paying, and so that is unproductive use of capital that is tied up.
Well, let's look at it. What's causing persons not to be able to pay their mortgage?
And, you know, I think that there's always a full appreciation. Circumstances happen, losing a job, medical issues that take impact, etc. But it goes down to saying that if Clint lends Gowan money, right? So forget the bank, Clint lends it directly. And I say, well, I hurt my back and I can't pay you. Is that good enough for you, or have I just shifted now hardship? Because in the first instance, you helped me, but if I don't pay you back now, that was your life savings, that was your investment, you used it for investment. The bank is only a conduit doing the same thing. And so when the bank does that, and you have persons who are not paying, and you're saying, well, you have to have compassion. You have compassion, but it is understanding that it's not your money you're having compassion with.
Right.
You are saying to depositors who gave you money, and you made as management a lending decision that didn't work out. It is not you as management who's going to bear that consequence.
Right.
And so there has to be a consequence that says when we have a significant pool of assets that are not performing and persons not paying, that it is going to have a knock-on effect because you're going to think harder. You're going to think longer, because when it was I knew Clint and I felt he was an honorable guy, that has been lost because we've moved to a consumerism type mindset. And I can tell you the experience. During COVID, and this is not to be derogatory or negative, persons who had savings, we didn't see a change in the banking sector. They adjusted their lifestyle. I know one person who told me he went from his regular meals to eating oatmeal every day, and a case was cheaper. But the ones who did not have savings were looking to have the same lifestyle even though circumstances had changed. The banks will tell you that Bahamians in general will pay their credit card before they pay their mortgage. And the reason being is because I need the credit card to go out on Saturday night. The mortgage, it can take you 2 years before you get me. And so our ethics and morals that our forefathers, grandparents, parents instilled in us are not being exhibited today. And if we go back to saying, I'm lending someone else's money, then you have to appreciate that the few bad apples are causing the difficulty. Now, the credit bureau, hopefully, and when I say hopefully, I don't mean it aspirationally, it's going to take time, is going to address that, because the credit bureau is going to say, the persons who have bad credit because they defaulted on other loans are now in full bloom for all banks to see, and the ones who've paid are going to be in full bloom to see. And so the ones who have built up a good credit history should find it easier as the credit bureau embeds itself in society.
We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with Gar and Bill. Stay with us.
That's the bearer of the Bahamas. I like to go down.
Is the Little Caesars Stuffed Crust Pizza. Get more pizza for less money. Only $12. It's a whole new level of pizza with cheese stuffed crust so spectacular that there's nothing left.
Pizza.
A delicious pepperoni pizza with the crust stuffed with lots of cheese and brushed with butter and garlic flavor and sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. Hot and ready Thursday to Saturday between 4 and 8 for only $12. Simply irresistible. And only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
We are here in the time of need. There's no discrimination. The mission is to relieve the suffering. We volunteer, we deliver care. With donors and partners, we're always here to turn compassion into action. Protecting life and health with our training throughout the years. We empower to heal the world. There is hope, assistance with disasters. There is shelter and love for our people. We can work together to help those in need. So volunteer with us and donate to show you care. There is hope, assistance with disasters. There is shelter and love for our people. We can work together to help those in need. So volunteer with us and donate to show you care. Together, let's build a more resilient Bahamas. Community farming for food security. Climate programs suited for our island country. Together, let's build a more resilient Bahamas.
This message brought to you by the Bahamas Red Cross Society in conjunction with the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
I have been coming to this island since I was 12 years old. It didn't take me long to realize the rich history it has here. When I bought this island in 2018, I fulfilled a lifelong dream. The goal is not only to preserve the memories I made over those years, but to make new ones, and to give others the opportunity to do the same. As we go through this process, it has become clear to me, we aren't just rebuilding an island, we're reviving a legend.
Welcome back to the Rundown. Gowing Bo, chairman of the Clearing Banks Association. My guest, let me get some questions in from the Lion's Den. Bernadette Gardner says, why does it take so long, sometimes 5 days, for funds deposited into the ATM to be credited to the client's account?
Poor bank service.
Poor bank service. It shouldn't take that long, right?
And I will say to you that all banks have a process where the ATM should be cleared at least once daily. And so if you're taking longer than 24 hours and there are no, what I'm going to call, where you put some funny money in it, it should be within 24 hours.
Why is it not possible to open an account and to have access to it within, say, 2 days? I notice account opening processes have taken really long nowadays rather than what they used to be.
There's a conflating of issues because sometimes the higher risk customers will take longer and they are crowding out some of the low risk, straightforward customers. But this is one that the government has worked directly with the banks on and the central bank. And I can tell you that all institutions have committed that if you are a low risk, meaning that standard individual source of funds are recognized and known, it should only take 24 hours.
We talked about the fact that we have a lot of young professionals working today in the Bahamas. Can they qualify for a mortgage nowadays? Why is it so difficult for people who make a reasonable income to be able to get a mortgage and have their own home?
You know, this is a solution that the banks by themselves just can't solve, and it's the cost of home ownership. That when we think about our parents and grandparents, you know, $120,000 got you
a mansion.
You know, well, it felt like a mansion when you look at the size of the property, and now the average price for what that professional would like to have is $300,000. So when you start looking at the size of the mortgage that is necessary for what you are purchasing, sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomach. And so the question really is the young professional looking at an affordable property that may not be keeping up with the Joneses and may not be where he or she wants to retire, but is it a good starter home? Is it a multifamily where it's a duplex? They're living in one side, renting the other side, and then they're building equity, building capital, and being able to move up as opposed to trying to see the end goal as being where they start simply because they have a good job today.
People love to give loans to, if you're a government worker,
yeah,
automatic. They get about 6 loans each. What is the rationale behind the government worker?
This is the few bad apples spoiling the bunch, meaning that the government is one of the few institutions that is willing to deduct from the employee before they go off and spend their monies. And so really, it's not that so much that they see the individuals as better credit quality. The government system that says, I take it from you before you can spend it and remit it to the bank is creating, if you will, a more stable cash flow pattern as opposed to how it used to be where you had to deposit your money and make your deposit into your loan account or make it into the savings account attached. So the reality is, again, hopefully the credit bureau takes those who are paying voluntarily as they should and makes this whole concept of salary deduction a less important factor in credit.
Kino Wong, who's in the Lion's Den, says, I'm writing to share my thoughts on my experience with Fidelity Bank. As a loyal business client for several years, I appreciate the exceptional service provided by the staff of the Frederick Street, Palmdale, and Cable Beach branches. Their professionalism and courtesy have consistently made my banking experience pleasant. However, I would like to express my disagreement with the fees associated with depositing funds into my business account. As a business owner, minimizing costs is essential, and these fees impact my bottom line. I would appreciate it if you could consider reviewing your fee structure or offering alternatives that benefit small business owners like myself. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Yeah. And there's one that Kino knows how to reach me, so I'll say he can come directly. But he actually answered his question. I mean, he answered himself in his own statement. That as a small business owner, it impacts his bottom line. If I don't have an appropriate fee structure, it impacts my bottom line as a bank. And so when we look at, I think sometimes to the point and why we're moving to digitization and why there's an encouragement for it. And I want to stress that the message is wrong because it comes across as a force. But the real aspect is encouraging people to digitization because if he has less deposits taking place and he's using card collections and all of his money is being directly deposited, those costs that he's seeing, remove. And if he doesn't like seeing the pretty tellers or the kind and professional ones, then ultimately he will find that, you know, there's an alternate mechanism in terms of night deposit and others that are solutions there. So it is not that we are without criticism, but in reality, we have to sit down more with our customers and explain, and particularly small business owners, because the same concerns they have, they see the bank as being bigger, but those are the same issues. That every for-profit organization has costs that it has to cover by its revenue. And the question is, am I still able to appropriately charge a price that keeps elasticity, means I keep getting customers, but I cover my costs with an appropriate return. And one thing that people need to appreciate, a bank takes risks every day, because I said to you, I don't lose the interest, I lose the principal as well. So the profitability of banks, yes, globally is expected to be higher, because in years of loss, and you mentioned, well, you had 2 years of the COVID, and you said, but you're now back to profits. But I have to first replace those losses, because no one came to me when I made the loss and said, well, you know those fees that you didn't charge me? Correct. Here's that fee back. Right. You go and plug the hole with the losses. Persons are saying, absorb the losses, big bad bank, and then when you make profits, don't charge me the fees. But it doesn't work that way, because my shareholder is me and you. My shareholder said, I put my money at risk, and I want my management to be responsible. I want them to take a return. And don't look at 1 year, 2 year. Look at what is going to happen over 15. And I said, profitability from 2008 is just now returning in 2014.
So this is digital week in the banks? You've
Live digital.
You're pushing digitalization.
Well, what is pushing is consumer education about the digital means. So, you know, we kind of know it, but we don't always appreciate the value of it. So using your debit card and credit card, but also educating you to say that, you know, businesses can't charge you a fee for using your debit or credit card. Understanding what it means to be online banking, the audit trail, the dual factor authentication, the PIN, and not sharing that. So it's not just a matter of, like I said, sort of pushing people towards digital. It's showing what are the improved benefits of doing things in a digital way that also will combat some of this concern about fees. Because when Fidelity, so I could speak on this when you say you could speak to the other bank, when we introduced a particular fee earlier in the year, I won't rehash that, there were alternatives for every customer that could avoid the fee. And so what we said was, if you choose that you want to hire the electrician to change the light bulb, you're going to have to pay the service costs. But if you want to adjust slightly and look at the alternatives, you could change the light bulb yourself.
Good. And you believe Fidelity is leading as a leading bank and making the right decisions?
Well, I'm biased, and I will say that the way we run our management is this, and my whole management team will tell you, my belief is we are part of the community. We are from the community, so we have to be a part of the community. And the reality is, our fee structure is only designed to recover costs. We want to be in the lending business. But we would like behemoths to restore themselves to good credit so that lending business can be there. We're the only bank that was started in the Bahamas. And that's a key factor to know.
Well, lend us your support and become a sponsor on the Rundown. I look forward to that, Gambo. It's always a pleasure. Fidelity's lucky to have you. Thank you for coming and sharing with us. When we come back, a young man who's standing tall tonight because of his success. Don Sanders Jr. is here, and a remarkable story to share with you. He's right after the break. Stay close.
Event, JMC TCI, and Sunset Village Fish Fry present I'm a Boatman, featuring Kami and Fred, D-Mac, Tino D, Nishi LS, Sweet Emily, Wilfred Sullivan, Funky D, DVS, Veronica Bishop, Papa Smurf, Sherrod Taylor, Lil Joe Cartwright, Mama D, Colin McDonough, Chad Cully, and the VIP. And from Turks Island, the Proficient Band, and host Super P. There'll also be performances by The Swinger and the Platinum Nights Joking Group. Sunday, October 13th at Sunset Village Fish Fry, 8 Mile Rock. Sponsored by the Ministry of Grand Bahama and the Ministry of Tourism.
It's the Battle of the Brains, 20 years strong and still going. Powered by Grand Bahama Power, fueling the future with scholarships and new opportunities.
After 20 years, I'm very confident in my team. I believe that we are very intelligent and we are very capable enough to actually win this entire competition.
I'm Leanna Johns. I'm from LAS, and I want to say thank you to Grand Bahama Power and to Buckeye for giving us this opportunity.
The Battle of the Brains, where school pride meets genius.
Welcome to our SBDC Business Tips, where we share valuable insights with small business owners. From practical advice to actionable tips, we're here to support you on your journey to success. Learn from failure. Failure is not the end. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. Don't be afraid to take risks and try new things, even if they don't always succeed. Use failure as a stepping stone to success by analyzing what went wrong, adjusting your approach, and trying again. Learn from your mistakes, adapt, and keep moving forward. Each setback presents an opportunity for growth and improvement. Remember, you've only failed when you've stopped trying. We hope you find these business tips helpful. To help your business reach its full potential, visit sbdcbahamas.com or give us a call at 242-461-SBDC.
If you're looking for a show that inspires, encourages, and lifts up the soul, then Rhythm of Faith is the show for you.
Blessings gonna find me, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I favor on my life.
Do you hear the sound of worship?
Artist of the Week showcase, persons that gives you the story behind the song. Catch Rhythm of Faith, Sundays, 6 p.m., ZNS Television Network.
Welcome back. Before we close tonight, I have to share this story of inspiration and encouragement to all of you. It began as a tragic story back in March when former Deputy Speaker of the House and former Member of Parliament Don Saunders was murdered. His death rocked the nation. No doubt was a devastating blow to his family. His son Don Jr., however, kept moving. He helped to lead the national swimming team to several victories in different events and games. But what could have easily deterred him from succeeding soon became his catalyst, pushing him to the most prestigious role at his high school. You see, Don Saunders Jr. was named head boy at St. John's College just days ago, sealing another level of success in the middle of adversity. He's here tonight to share his story, and I'm so happy to have Don Saunders Jr. on the rundown. Welcome to the show.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invite.
I'm just happy to have you here. I'm going to be quick, so I know you got to go home. You might have homework. You might go to bed early. We'll get it done real quick. It was amazing. I saw the story, and I was just amazed at your strength this entire year. First of all, it was shortly after, I think it was the weekend of Carifta when your father would have been murdered, and you had to swim that weekend. Yep. And you decided to go out and swim. Yeah. Why?
Well, I've trained a lot for my event, so I didn't want that time and energy to go to waste, and I know my father would have been proud. He was very excited. He wanted to actually get a boat with a flag with my face on it and cheer for me, so I kept that image in my head because I know that's what he would want.
Wow. You did that event. How did you feel afterwards, coming out of the water? How did you feel?
Honestly, well, it was a 5K, so I was really sore, to be honest. But to see the many Bahamians gather to watch me swim and feel the support and love for my nation was a great feeling, and I wish to have that with me as I continue my journey.
You continue to swim, you continue to lead your teams, the national teams to various events and so forth. You kept pushing. And then to be given this honor as head boy, did you expect it? Were you hoping for it, or was it something you just didn't know?
Well, I was told not to rest on my laurels, but I'm excited. I was given the opportunity to represent my school to the best of my abilities, so I'm very happy. I plan to do a lot with my school, start with national representation. Being here is a start. Yes. I want to get St. John's known throughout the country, or it's already known, but I want to make it better.
I look at your tie, your necktie, and you can hardly see the necktie because there's so many badges on this tie. Tell me what badges you're wearing.
First off, I have the head boy pin. Then I have a prefect, Gentleman's Assistance Coordinator at the Green Mile Club, a new non-profit organization started by our founder, Dr. Kerry Marcel, with the hope to better our men. We have the St. John's Birthing House, the best house, swim captain, obviously.
What do you say to people, young people out there tonight, and maybe so many adults are learning from you tonight, in the face of tragedy, What do you say, what advice you give them about keep going and keep achieving your goals through, no doubt, what probably still is a difficult time? What keeps you going?
Honestly, the support. I wouldn't be here today without the support, so I want to tell them that somebody cares, seek help, seek advice. I want to dismantle the stigma around therapists in our country. I have a therapist. Without my therapist, her name is Dr. Shetty, I won't be able to achieve all that I've achieved. So I want people to go out, go ask someone for help, ask a trusted friend, ask an advisor at school, ask a co-worker to help you talk your problems, because it doesn't help you keeping it bottled in.
Has that been that level of strength for you to be able to talk through the difficult times?
Yes. My therapist, as I said, Dr. Shetty, is a great therapist. She's helped me to navigate my emotions being a young man in our country. You know, we are not really exposed to our emotions. We're not taught how to deal with our emotions, and that's why we see a lot of violence and a lot of alcohol, drug abuse in our country. So to be able to have that opportunity to express myself to someone really helped me through my moment.
Through your pain, was there still a different reaction of anger to what happened? Did you feel that as well?
I did. I would be remiss of me not to say I wasn't angry, because given the circumstances, I know my dad was a great man. He didn't deserve to go out that way, and I wish that he could have gone out a better way. So I would say I was angry, but through my therapy, through my spiritual connection with the Lord and Savior, my mother, and all the support, I've been able to relieve that anger and channel it into new positive ways of outlets like swimming and leading my school.
That's amazing. What lies ahead for you in your vision? What are you looking to achieve?
I'm looking to graduate the Distinguished School of Choice, St. John's College, and continue my swimming career at university and major in engineering school.
Engineering. What do you want to do with engineering?
Electrical. I take an electrical installation course at St. John's College. We were the first cohort at our school to do electrical installation, so I fell in love with it. I love math, I love physics, so that became a great avenue.
Math and physics. A male who loves math and physics, that's rare. What do you hope to do as a career choice? What are you looking to become?
I'm looking at becoming an electrical engineer. The space is broad, so there's different avenues of where I can go, and that suits me because I'm not really one career for my whole life. I want to change my trajectory throughout my life.
Do you find yourself in your role at St. John's having to talk to young people and having to give them advice during times or challenging? I know you're still new in the role, but have you found that to be what you're faced with already?
Yes, I've been doing it for quite some time. I've always been someone you can talk to, someone you can look up to. So I plan to be that for my students, because if I could do it, I know they can. So to be a role model, that's why it's such a big thing for me to persevere through my tough times, because I want to be that persons look to when they're having a tough day to say that he's went through a lot, so that means I can too.
I'll give you the final thought. What one thing do you want to say to the Bahamian people who are watching not only in the country but around the world? Look in that camera right there. What one thing you want to say to encourage them?
I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. Thank you for all the encouraging words, and to continue to be great. Don't let anyone distract you. Stay on your mission. Stay positive, and thank God.
Listen, I'm so excited to see that you're on this trajectory, and I believe the sky is going to be the limit, and you're going to be excellent for our country. We continue to stand with you and support you, and to let you know, keep running and don't ever give up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on the show, Don. I appreciate it.
You too.
And on that note, that's our show. Thanks so much for joining us. I've got to say thank you to the sponsors. Let me pull up my sheet. Those of you who are smart enough to make that business sense and sponsor us: Jamaica Bahama Imports, Collect, the I Am Boatman Concert with KB and Friends, CBS, Little Caesars Pizza, Ace Hardware, the Small Business Development Center, and of course, Bamboo Shack Express. That's the rundown for us for tonight. For all of us here at ZNS News, I'm Clint Watson. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to join us for the Bahamas tonight at 11 with Royston Jones. I already see him in the newsroom. He's here. Join him at 11 o'clock tonight. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
At Fort Montague, I'm Opal Roach. This is ZNS.